Okay, this is a continuation of our series on archetypes. I'm going to talk about character archetypes. So we're going to discuss basically what kinds of character archetypes there are. We're going to talk about a little bit of who they are, where they are found, what kind of their role is in the movie or the book or the story more generally, and how you can identify them. So we already mentioned one in my movie just about archetypes generically. We had the counselor, and we had the trickster. I would pair those two off against each other because the trickster oftentimes gives you advice, kind of like the angel and the devil on your shoulder. The trickster might say, "Hey, if it's the devil, he's going to tell you kind of like, don't you want to have fun? That angel just wants you to be good all the time, and you never get to do what you want to do. You always have to do what's right. Don't you want to just come out and have a good time for once in your life?" And the angel's like, well, if you do that, you know what's going to happen. You're going to have trouble. You're going to have to go back and fix what you did. You may make people sad or upset or hurt. So, and depending on which one you listen to, you have two different stories. So there can be a good counselor, there can be a bad counselor. I would pair those together as trickster and counselor. So, anyway, there's our two archetypes. You have your archetype of the hero of your movie. So your hero is the person who you're cheering for, is a shorthand definition for hero. So we may even find out the name of the hero from the name of the movie, like Spider-Man or Iron Man or the Incredible Hulk or whatever. You're supposed to want that person to win. If you don't want that person to win, the person who made the movie did something wrong, in all likelihood, unless they're just playing with your expectations. But most of the time, they did something wrong. If the hero doesn't win, it's a tragedy. If the hero does win, you're happy. So, anyway, but most of the time, you have a hero. And if you have a hero, you generally have a villain. So, your villain is the person who basically is opposed to the hero. So, they're doing what the hero doesn't want them to do, or they're playing against the hero. They're trying to stop the hero from achieving their quest or their goal in life. There isn't always a villain in the movie. There usually is a hero in most movies, but depending on the circumstances, there may not need to be a villain because you could just have like a scenario that the hero has to overcome or something. So, anyway, that's that hero and villain. If you have a unique situation where find yourself cheering for the bad guy, assuming the movie or story writer is doing this intentionally, you probably have an anti-hero on your hands. So you have somebody that's so bad it's good or something. Like you're like, whoa, he's kind of cool. Like Terminator is a good example of this. You have Arnold Schwarzenegger's character is usually bad, but he sort of steals the show in some ways. You're like, wow, he's kind of cool, even though he's trying to destroy humanity and enslave them to the machines. We're kind of like, but he does it with style or something. So, he's kind of the anti-hero of the movie. And, there's a strong hero figure playing against him, John Connor's mother. But still, we kind of have this like, ooh, he's kind of fun. We want him to get in some good blows or something before he's defeated because we're like, he's kind of cool, even though he's kind of not cool because he's evil, but, it's sort of an interesting idea. So the anti-hero can be somebody who we're sort of cheering for too, even though they're bad. So if you have an anti-hero, Macbeth, for example, if you've read any Shakespeare, is kind of an anti-hero. We're like, I feel for Macbeth because I can identify with him, but if he wins, he's kind of going to become this tyrant person, and that's not cool. So I know he has to lose if everything's going to turn out all right, but I'm kind of sad because I'm like, I like Macbeth a little bit. I can identify with who he is. So that's an anti-hero or a tragic hero, is they have some flaw If they overcome their flaw, that's great. If they don't overcome their flaw, they turn into like this evil person, and then you're like, oh, you know, that's sad. So you're kind of cheering for them to overcome their problems, so stop being evil so much, so you can like them, so they can win. That might be an anti-hero. Uh, so that's a couple things. Sidekick is another character that has to do with a hero. So you have the hero and you have their sidekick, their buddy. A lot of times, the buddy character or the sidekick character is the person in the relationship we can identify with, and the hero is the weird person. So you have like, um, like Superman doesn't really have a sidekick, but if he did, it would probably be some average Joe. So, but like Spider Man doesn't really have a sidekick, but he has his romantic interest. So his romantic interest tends to be the normal person who we can identify with, and she has to cope with her boyfriend being this web slinging crazy hero type guy who may or may not be able to be in a relationship with her because he's, devoted to saving the world or whatever, and that kind of conflicts with her desire to marry him or be with him. So you can have that sidekick character. Probably a more evident example is like Batman from the TV series had his Robin. Robin was a sidekick. He went and did what Batman did. He followed Batman around. These people are usually pretty loyal to their hero, but they're somebody we can relate to a little bit better than the hero for some reason because they're kind of like us. Like Luke in Star Wars had people that followed him around who were more like normal people, or like Biggs and Wedge, the two TIE pilot, not TIE pilots, the mixing up my side, the two pilots that fly with Luke. We can kind of identify with them because they're just like farm boys, and they're kind of like, oh, blah, 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 I'm just a normal person. You can relate to me. So they're kind of his sidekick. Or in Iron Man, there's War Machine is just kind of this military guy who did work his way up through the ranks and all, but we could envision ourselves kind of doing that, being that guy who was just like, I'm a guy with cool toys, whereas being a narcissistic billionaire philanthropist doesn't really gel with our everyday experience as much. So the sidekick kind of brings us into the world of the hero, especially if that world is kind of weird. So we have that. There's a couple more things I wanted to talk about. Romance is another pairing. So like the person and the person they love tend to be archetypal figures. We have all these associations of what true love looks like, what faithfulness looks like, what that love relationship looks like, or a love-hate relationship, depending on if there's a lot of conflict in the marriage or in the dating relationship. We kind of have that tension, romantic tension. Sometimes there's a love triangle where there's like three people, one of them is loved by two other people and has to make the choice between those two people. That can really drive a plot. Any of these things can carry a plot. We have mother and father. Like, what is the mom like? What is the dad like? Do they conflict? Do they get along? What are some traits of being a dad? Maybe being a dad is just thinking with your stomach and thinking with your gut and acting out of, instinct. And being a mom is more like, I'm a thoughtful, caring, generous person who actually takes time to reflect on the situation I'm in. You could have that, but so we have these expectations of mothers, that mothers will be nurturing, that fathers will be providers for their family. They're all sort of stereotypical. I would use the word archetype since that's what we're talking about. But basically, you've got these characters, and they are providing a basis on which to analyze the movie. So, you would look at, well, what is the dad like in this movie? What is the mom like? Does that drive the conflict? In some movies, it does. Or, We have stereotypical ideas or archetypal ideas of children, like sons are like this, daughters are like this, that sort of thing. Grandparents are like this. So all those family members have associations with them that are archetypal associations. So those are some character types to be on the lookout for. Who falls in what category, who functions in what way, what do we expect this person to be like, what are they actually like. So you could have a father who we'd expect to be, supportive and caring and take care of his family, and he doesn't. And we would see the movie was playing against that idea. Or if we had a mother who was out in the workforce and the father was the nurturing person at home, that kind of plays against our expectations to some degree. So, anyway, these sort of associations with characters are what we're going to be looking at. I'm going to give you a couple movie exercises to work through with this. The first one we're going to watch is something I've already perhaps shown you, Star Trek. This was by J.J. Abrams, 2009, if memory serves. We're going to look at these characters, namely Kirk and Spock, and some of the other minor characters in the movie. There's actually two Spocks because it's science fiction, and one is from like an alternate timeline, depending on which way you look at it. So, going to be analyzing what role do these characters play in this film. Do they fulfill our expectations? Do they play against our expectations? And how? So, if you want to watch that movie, if you're not in my actual class, and actually take a look at either Kirk or Spock, and get back to me with what you think each person is in the movie, what role they play, and if you wanted to pick up on some of the other minor characters or whatever, that would be fine too. So take a look at this movie. Let me know what you think about his characters, and we will get back to you. Now, a word about the comment thread. If you're just following along on the internet and are not in my actual class, I may or may not have time to get to everybody's comment if there happens to be a ton of comments, or anybody's comment. I don't know. Really depends on my time. So, hope this is enjoyable to you, and we will see you again.